Chapter 3, The Basement, Abasement. My first thought was that the pins hadn't held and the drone had crashed to the floor during first period. I scanned the floor, expecting to see bits of broken drone everywhere. However, the floors were clean. It hadn't crashed, and someone hadn't simply cleaned up the pieces either. There wasn't a trace of the drone anywhere. That meant someone had taken our drone from the ceiling. I scanned the hallway. Students poured from classroom doors, but no one seemed to be watching me, waiting for a reaction. I almost wished I had seen someone like that. At that moment, I would have loved to have been on the receiving end of some sort of prank. Ha ha, very funny, you got me. Now, can I have my drone back, please? With no pranksters in sight, I left the doorway and drifted into the flow of foot traffic. I tried to reason out the possibilities. Maybe we didn't lose the collie bird after all. Maybe Colin's drone doubled back and spotted ours. If he came back himself and took it down, then that meant he would have reported us to Principal Davenport. Of course, Mr. Davenport wouldn't know it was our drone until we tried to claim it. Perfect. So if we claim the drone, we get in trouble. If we don't claim it, then we lose our prototype for the invention convention. Noah was going to kill me. I adjusted the weight of my backpack and moved farther down the hallway. Then I remembered my pack was heavier than usual. I still had my VR gear. That was it. I quickened my pace and searched for a secluded area. The library was halfway down the corridor, and I ducked inside. Luckily, Mrs. Welch was with a student at the front desk, so she didn't see me come in. I darted between two bookshelves and crouched. I had my VR headset turned on in a flash and powered up the drone's cameras. If I couldn't see our drone, then at least I could see what our drone saw. My VR screen came to life, and I saw kids walk past the camera. The drone was in the hallways. As students rushed to class, I exhaled with relief. At least I didn't see the inside of Mr. Davenport's office on the screen. Whoever had taken our drone was still on the move. I switched on the drone's rear camera, but the screen was black. The lens must have been blocked by something, maybe by whoever was holding it. I breathed a sigh of relief. There was still hope that I could get our drone back without dealing with Davenport, Colin, or anyone else who had the power to confiscate our prototype. I just had to figure out where it was. I toggled back to the front camera and tried to get a clue of who had it. I couldn't see any part of the person. They just walked along the crowded hallway. In fact, whoever had the drone walked very smoothly. The image on the screen moved so steadily that it was almost as if the drone was flying. But since the angle of the video was askew, I knew that couldn't be the case. I turned my attention to the drone's surroundings. Unfortunately, between the mass of students and the fact that all the classrooms looked the same from the outside, I couldn't tell where in the school it was. It could be on any of the 3 floors. I groaned with frustration. Ugh, my new prototype hope evaporated faster than a cube of dry ice in hot water. My thumbs instinctively moved to the joysticks as if I could turn the drone to get a better look around. But with the drone powered down, I was at the mercy of whoever was holding it. If I started the drone now, I risked damaging it if the person dropped it in surprise. I sighed and continued to scan the surroundings for a clue, any kind of clue that gave me the drone's location. Then I knew exactly where it was. Between passing students, I had caught a glimpse of BB-8. Mrs. Scott had a poster featuring the popular Star Wars droid on the door of her robotics class. Whoever had the drone was on the 3rd floor. Yes, I said to myself. I raised my headset to my forehead and bolted out of the library. I made my way through the crowded hallway toward the stairs at the end. I heard a, "Nice hat, Swift," and even a, "Take me to your leader," but I ignored the jabs and kept moving. I took the stairs 2 at a time until I was on the 3rd floor landing. Then I made my way to Mrs. Scott's robotics class. I slid to a stop in front of BB-8 and bent over to catch my breath. I glanced around but didn't see anyone holding our drone. I slipped down the headset. The view screen showed the end of the hallway. My stomach lurched a bit when the view swung around. Whoever had the droid had just turned left. I was closing in. I slid up the headset and dashed down the hall. The crowd was thinning as the time for the next bell approached. I was probably going to be late for second period, but I would deal with that later. I quickened my pace. Whatever trouble I had to talk my way out of would be worth it, if I could just find out who had swiped our drone. I made it to the end of the hall and turned left. The entrance to the stairs was to the right. The only thing to the left was the service elevator, and the only person there was Mr. Conway. The short, baldy man had his back to me as he pushed his cleaning cart onto the waiting elevator car. I looked past him and saw our drone resting on his cart. "Mr. Conway!" I shouted as I ran toward the elevator. He didn't seem to hear me. Instead of turning, he reached over and pushed a button on the elevator without looking out of the car. The doors began to close. I made it to the doors just after they shut. I punched the call button several times, but I was too late. I glanced up, but the service elevator didn't have any kind of directional indicator above it, like some elevators. I didn't know which floor Mr. Conway was headed for. I sighed and lowered my visor. I was definitely going to be late for class. The view screen showed the interior of the elevator for a while. Then the view shifted. Mr. Conway pulled the cart out of the elevator. I looked around for any clue to his location. I didn't recognize anything at first. It didn't look like the rest of the school. Then the stairwell came into view. There were stairs leading to the level above, but there were no stairs leading down. Mr. Conway was in the basement. I raised my visor and sprinted for the stairs. With everyone else in class by now, I could really fly down the steps, down to the first floor and then down to the basement. I always knew there was a basement in the school, but I never had reason to go down there before. As far as I knew, it was mostly storage. Occasionally, a teacher would talk about digging something out of the basement. "Want to show a video that's only available on old VHS tape? We'll have to get a VCR out of the basement. Looking for a chart of the solar system that still includes Pluto as a planet? Basement." I came off the last step to find myself in a dimly lit alcove. Several cardboard boxes were stacked in corners and shoved under the stairs. A flickering fluorescent bulb gave the area a creepy horror movie kind of feel. If any of the students had bothered to come into the basement, there could totally be some cool rumors about former students being locked up down here, and other spooky stuff. I made a mental note to tell Noah so we could get right on that. Up ahead, Mr. Conway pushed his cart through an open doorway. A long hallway led beyond. "Excuse me," I said. "Mr. Conway?" Once again he didn't turn. Instead, Mr. Conway rolled his cart through the doorway and the door swung closed behind him. I ran up to the door and grabbed the handle to pull it open. The door didn't budge. I pulled harder, but it was locked. I glanced left and saw a gray plastic box and a keypad mounted on the wall beside the door. A tiny red light blinked on the upper left corner of the box. Mr. Conway must have used a key card or a code to get through. I knocked on the door's large glass window. "Mr. Conway!" I said louder. He ignored me once again. He kept pushing his cart down the hallway beyond. That's when I noticed the tiny white cables stretching from his overalls pocket. They split and one cable went to each of the custodian's ears. Mr. Conway was listening to music on his phone or some kind of MP3 player. And then the bell rang. Great. I was late for nothing.